Most stores or retailers have the same basic path to success. All of them aim to increase their revenue and reduce liability to improve profitability. The goal is the same, but reaching each milestone may vary. So today, we'll look at ways to maximize store performance and profitability. Track Session 4's panel of experts will make a 10-minute symposium type of presentation regarding the subject matter, sharing valuable information, their insights, and their experiences. Questions from the audience will be entertained during the open forum. Participants are expected to apply tools for financial management, explore cashless and digital financial tools and resources, manage cash flow, and revisit bottom line. Track Session 4 is brought to you by PLDT, BPI, Insular Life, 7-Eleven, TGP, The Generics Pharmacy, Mega World Corporation, and SM Supermalls. Joining us again today is a veteran broadcast journalist with 30 years of experience covering local and international news. He currently covers the global retail and travel industries as host, producer, and writer of Executive Class for the ABS-CBN News Channel, or ANC. Since March 2020, he has been hosting ANC Conversations, a new program that tackles the new normal in businesses and lifestyles brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. Please welcome him back with a round of applause, Mr. David Celdran.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction and for that applause, that virtual applause. I like it. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me for yet another year. I don't know, it's been around 6 or 7 years in a row now. Well, this year is different, as we all know, and I guess that's an understatement. Gosh, I don't think any of us will ever forget the 2020 edition of this annual conference. Okay, I admit I was a bit reluctant to moderate the session on profitability because I was afraid there would be a little, so little that was positive to talk about at a time when even the most powerful companies and brands are struggling to survive, never mind being profitable this year. But after moderating yesterday's session on leadership and listening to the way companies like Max's, McDonald's, and SM, all badly hit by the crisis, by the way, have found ways to stay afloat and create new revenue streams, I'm a bit more optimistic now. But that's not a reason to be naively optimistic because the crisis is very real. And unless you're Amazon or Zoom or a pharma company, this pandemic will challenge the best of us. So, again, all the more reason why we need to have this brutally real conversation about our goals and priorities and how maybe we should redefine profitability in this age of COVID. This may not be the easiest session to join in the conference, but I hope this will be the most useful one for those of you in the franchise business. You see, when times are good, a good franchise could more or less take care of itself. But in difficult times, well, that's precisely when we need to listen to those with experience, wisdom, and most importantly, the tenacity to survive and turn this crisis into an opportunity to learn, to change, to grow, and yes, be profitable, because it is possible. So today we invited 3 business leaders who will share with us ways to maximize store performance and store profitability despite the challenges. But before I introduce them, we want to hear what you have to say about managing your own profitability at this time. So, are you ready? This is your chance to join this conversation. And we have a poll and survey for you, and please, we'd like you to answer. Okay, what is the biggest hindrance to your current operation? Okay, answer that. We have the poll on screen. Or simply put, what is draining your profitability in your current operations? Is it limited public transportation? Is it rental, utilities, rising cost of goods maybe, taxes, because we still have to pay taxes, safety procedures, you'll have to invest in all sorts of health protocols, PPEs, and health safety mechanisms in your stores? Or is it the decreased customer confidence and less purchasing power? So you may pick multiple choices, okay? We're gonna give you 2 minutes to answer these questions. So take your time and just try to think which of these aspects of the business are draining your profitability. While you're at it, let's move on to the next survey question. Because of declining sales, when do you set the goal to achieve your target of profitability? This is interesting. We want to see if you're an optimist or a pessimist. Is it now, maybe in 1 month, in 3 months, in 6 months, or in 1 year? We're being very optimistic here. We didn't put 2 or 5 years or not at all. So yes, maxed out at 1 year. Okay, for this question, just take your time once again. Just choose one though. Just choose one. You can't have that projection for more than one time frame. Okay, those are just the 2 questions we have for you. Take your time. We'll give you another minute to answer your questions, okay? In the meantime, let me just fix my desktop over here. All right. Our speakers, by the way, who I'll be introducing in a short while, are free to answer this poll survey as well. And all right. Okay, here are the results. That was pretty quick. Okay, this is interesting because this will be the basis for our discussion today. It's getting a pulse of what you think about your own organization's profitability goals and profitability scenarios. Okay, what is the biggest hindrance to your current operation? What is draining profitability in your company? Rental is big, okay. We have some of the mall operators here and real estate companies here today. Rental is 41%. Next is, actually the biggest is decreased customer confidence. That's pretty much what it is, isn't it? Decreased purchasing power. Of course, we have rental, we have limited public transportation, also pretty high. Safety procedures, the investments you'd had to make in safety procedures and protocols. And to a certain extent, much less in the others, utilities, the cost of goods and taxes. It's not so much the operating costs, except for the rentals, of course. It's pretty much what's happening outside our own businesses, things we can't control, like public transportation and customer confidence. All right, that was interesting. Let's move on to the next one, the next poll. This was a question about profitability and when do you think that's going to be possible in your operations? Let's take a look. When do you set the goal to achieve your target profitability? Okay, I like this. In 6 months, that's pretty soon. That's optimistic. We even have now 23%. In 1 year, 25%. In 3 months, 16%. In 2 years, 8%. In 1 month, okay, just 2%. Okay, so the optimists are pretty much in the room right now, in the house right now. And in 2 years, just 8%. Okay, that's I love this. It's a great way to start this conversation on an optimistic tone. Thank you so much for joining our poll. And I'd like to see how that contrasts with what our speakers have to say. Because I can tell from the results that we're all facing challenging times, but it's not all doom and gloom, as our panel of experts will probably tell you. So we invited some top business leaders who are going through similar difficulties such as yours, but are finding smart ways of managing operations and product offerings in order to either stay profitable or prepare for a return to profitability very soon. So let's meet them. Our first speaker is the Chief Retail Officer of Golden ABC, home of brands like Penshoppe, Oxygen, Memo, For Me, and Regatta. With a professional career that spans over 30 years, she built her expertise in fashion, retailing, and marketing as she built the design and merchandising capability of the company into what it is today. She also champions merchandise planning and supply chain management for her company. She is the PFA Director for Marketing and Promotions of the Philippine Franchise Association since 2017. In addition, she was the 2018 Conference Chair for the Franchise Asia Philippines 2018. Let's all please welcome Alice Liu. Alice, it's good to see you. I'm wondering if you're as optimistic as our participants are. Well, we'll find out because Alice, you have 10 minutes to share your insights through a quick presentation. The floor is yours, Alice.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Okay, let me just get this going. Hold on 1 second. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Alice, go ahead. I think
Can
it's
you see
we
the
can see your
slides
screen
also?
and we can
Okay,
hear your
perfect.
voice. Go
So,
ahead.
good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of our CEO, Mr. Bernie Liu, and our entire store operations team, I'm here to share with you today a few lessons we have learned to value these past few months since the start of this pandemic, and our lives have suddenly become chaotic but filled with new opportunities. Now that we are all 6 months into what many call the new normal, I'm sure many of us have learned valuable lessons. We call it our master's degree in business survival. In another 6 months, we will know if we have passed our MBAs based on the state of our businesses fast forward. So, what have we learned as we maneuvered through this entire pandemic? One, that cash is king. So let's set aside for the meantime discussions on profitability, revenue growth, return on invested capital, and even productivity measures like sales per square meter. Since the crisis, most companies have really been obsessed with cash, both acquiring or holding on to it. The first few things that many, including us, immediately applied were to pause all investments, to limit operational spending, and to ramp up online sales. As the market recovers, and we don't know with certainty when that will be, but we are hopeful it will be soon. Operating cash flows and free cash flow will continue to be a major focus of most companies. Brands or companies who generated enough cash through this crisis will be in a better position to invest in relaunching or restarting their businesses, adapting their supply chain and distribution models to a post COVID or post pandemic world. One thing for sure, if this happened now, it can happen again. With sales declining sharply across the market, we put an emphasis on market share. When our brand sales suffer less than industry average, it means its relative size in the market is improving. This is why we continue to track sales achievement. However, since current resources may be a bit limited, I don't suggest we gain market share by aggressive measures like additional sites or more inventory or front loading sales with our franchise partners. Rather, I suggest we focus on improving sales efficiency measures like increasing basket size, which is the average spend of each customer each time they come to visit our stores, upselling, selling them something more in addition to their current purchase, like a complimentary product or pointing out specials that the customers may have missed, and improving closing ratio. Let's not waste the headcount and let the customer walk out without buying anything. Another important thing that we all have to remember is is to remember that sell out is as important as sell in. Unsold inventory is a risk and an obligation for companies, whether they are in your own stores or shipped out to your franchisees. That's why, in addition to monitoring stocks and sell through in our own stores, tracking sell out of your franchise partners is as important. While you may have been able to move inventory to your wholesale partners or franchisees, if they don't sell it, you may have difficulty collecting payments. So make it your business to know how your franchisee is performing. This pandemic has afforded us a long pause to allow us to take a hard look at what is key or really important to our business and allow us to rechannel our resources to key areas that will help us drive our business in the future. As business owners, many are emotional with the difficult decisions that need to be made with people, with rationalizing stores, getting rid of idle assets, or managing relationships with landlords. But we need to remember to play the long game. The sacrifices we make today or the right sizing we need to do given the situation will help prepare us to be leaner, stronger, and more agile for future business that will remain when we emerge from this pandemic. So, what have we done here at Golden ABC to maximize store performance? For store profitability and sustainability, it is important to be able to look down to a per store level because when you have more stores eroding your profitability than contributing to it, it will drain your ability to build up your cash reserves. So at the start of the pandemic, we made sure we managed costs to operate our stores efficiently. Rent and labor are main expense items for stores, so we had to take a hard look at how many people we needed to manage and operate our stores given the very impacted customer headcount we had walking into our stores. Then we also spoke with all mall partners and landlords and worked with them for a sustainable arrangement. We are fortunate that we have kept conversations with our business partners very often, and we are grateful for the support we have received from many of them. Mind you, this relationship is something that is built, nurtured, and maintained in good times and in bad. With that being said, I would like to point out that an important aspect in maximizing store profitability is by encouraging your sales team to really look at the market beyond the four walls of your brick and mortar stores and look for innovative ways to bring your product to your customer. Some family favorites we are now able to enjoy, freshly cooked at the comforts of our home, is the spicy tuna pie of Jollibee and the potato corner flavored French fries, where before the pandemic we had to wait for a trip to the malls or order delivery to enjoy them. Another favorite, fruit nectar natural juice drinks, have also transformed and can now deliver drinks to your homes by sending a Viber or a text message to a central order number. Another example, and not to preempt Vic's talk, is how 7-Eleven has pivoted to continue bringing community convenience to the level of store community chat groups with about 300 customers per store, which they actively use to notify customers of enticing promotions and which the customers can also use to replenish grocery supplies. We have to face it with the public transport limitations and the age limit restrictions that still have to be slowly lifted. We will have to find innovative ways to reach our respective markets through less conventional means so that we continue to connect our brands with them. While times may be difficult and lack of social connections challenging, we have to somehow foster resilience in our very young workforce and encourage people to be realistic but also hopeful, mindful that each individual is dealing with a pandemic differently and that we are all doing our best to survive this journey together. So, thank you. I hope I was able to somehow share what we've learned through this and give it back to you.
Thank you so much, Alice Liu. Oh, yes, you have indeed. Thank you so much for that short course in business survival, if we can call it that. And I guess in a word, just to sum up what you've said, it's discipline, fiscal and operational discipline within your companies and within your brand. So thank you so much, Alice. I love the way you so calmly talk about the crisis in that presentation. Speaking of which, just a request from the Secretariat, Alice, if it's okay, if you can just speak a bit louder for our participants. You're coming in a bit soft, but very clear, but just a bit soft. So thank you so much, Alice. Let's move on to our next speaker. So following Alice is Philippine 7 Corporation, or PSC's president and CEO, 7-Eleven's local franchisor. Prior to his appointment as PSC president, he was general manager, president, and CEO of the company's logistics subsidiary, Convenience Distribution Incorporated. He was awarded the SGV Master Entrepreneur Award by Ernst & Young in 2012. He also received the 2013 CEO Excel Award from International Association of Business Communicators, or IABC. He graduated magna cum laude with a bachelor's degree in engineering at the Lehigh University of Pennsylvania. Please welcome the Board Director for Foreign Food Franchises of the Philippine Franchise Association, our good friend, Jose Victor Paterno. Vic, good to see you.
Hello, hi.
You're not actually sitting in front of a 7-Eleven branch, are you?
No.
All right, just kidding. So, Vic, yeah, we're all ears. We'd love to hear what 7-Eleven has been up to in terms of really ramping up the efforts to bring back profitability. Go ahead, Vic. 10 minutes for you.
Thank you, David, and hello, everyone. So, can you all see this? I've titled it "Surviving, then Prospering." Fingers crossed, because we don't really know in 2020 and beyond. No? And so, basically, what have we done? Just a bit about 7-Eleven. We're a global brand with many countries. And in the Philippines, we extend, from the very north to the very south, as far as Jensen. We have about 3,000 stores now, a little shy of 3,000 stores. We actually halted expansion in 2020 until the situation clears. That was an immediate decision, pretty much. 55% of our stores are franchised. So what happened in those key months, March, April, May? Like many of you, our stores were closed. We had difficulty getting people to work. Some municipalities didn't want us to open us at all. Some wanted us to open 24 hours to help respond to the crisis. You might have seen this, the Google mobility figures. We had the longest, toughest lockdown in the world, quantitatively speaking. So what's our journey? What did it look like? First was making sure we could survive. Early on, we took the view that this would last a few years. So then it became about securing access to capital. We were fortunate to have entered the crisis with a load of cash. I can say this because we're public, so it's no secret, with a load of cash. But still, we doubled our credit lines just in case. And then, set about with a mindset that not everybody had such access to capital. Therefore, strategically, we should use it to competitive advantage. One of those, aside from securing supply, turning on our payments infrastructure again with advanced payments to the wallets. Everybody had tightened terms. Everybody was afraid the other guy would not be able to pay. So we put in working capital for that. But also, we realized that it would be difficult for franchisees to get financing. It's just the way the financing system here works. It's easy for large companies to get it. It's very difficult for smaller ones, unfortunately. So we decided to be the ones to lend to our franchisees. Anyway, we see their operations. And, truth be told, we feared like a mass exodus of franchisees, over time. The next step was renegotiating rentals. So we actually gave the franchise package in June, the credit package in June. We didn't announce it until July publicly, because we followed that announcement that very same day with a letter to landlords saying, in effect, we've done our part, it's your turn, and we'll be closing stores. It's very hard to renegotiate rentals with 3,000 independent landlords. So you have to do it in one fell swoop. We had been asking piecemeal from April to June, but unsurprisingly not gotten very good results, because again, if you cannot threaten to do something, you're begging. But if you say, look, I'm going to do this, or this, if you don't give in, then you're negotiating. So that was our threat, is that, hey, we can't keep all our stores open, especially the stores that are close to one another. So across the board, they responded favorably. There are some holdouts, but of course, and in the spirit of fairness, we issued a second letter. Second letter, and so that everybody kind of chips in. You got. I think the fear of every landlord is that I'm the only one who's going to give in, right? And the chain won't prosper anyway. So why should I? So that we kind of try to address that. Now, how about prospering? Well, we take the view that customer demand has changed in more in 3 months than it has in 35 years. And so we said, okay, what are customers looking for now? There are fewer customers with bigger basket sizes. And there's a strong bias towards essentials, less towards snacking and drinking. And so we replaced our seating with shelving. We expanded our warehouse to accommodate these moves. So we're going to have a customized assortment per store. So 2,500 to 3,000 items from a universe of 7,000 items. These were all initiatives we had 1 or 2 years before, replacing shelves, pricing, etc., etc. It's just that now you have to do it. Before there was a risk. What if the people miss the seats and don't buy stuff from the shelves? Well, now there's no seating, so you might as well replace them. So it just makes you go faster, so the risks are removed, and the risk of not surviving becomes greater. Online, Alice, thank you, talked about the store community chat. So we look at that. I think that's a trend that everybody sees, even in their neighborhoods. So we decided to capitalize on that. This has been done in Taiwan for years. Our majority shareholders are 7-Eleven Taiwan. Our big move also is online grocery. So we pick from the warehouse and deliver to store. The value proposition will be supermarket prices are lower. And because of the way convenience stores work, we believe we can do this more competitively than any player in the market.
Vic, if you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, let me just come in. I'm not sure if it's just me, but I think we're getting reactions that your screen is a bit too tight. So we're only getting a portion of the presentation. If there's any way to adjust it. If not, just go ahead. We're all ears.
Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's almost done anyway. And we're expanding pickup to large online players in Q1. So that same logistics efficiency. Expanding payments and credit. So we've had a big digital payments business. It's 3 times our sales every day. So recycling ATMs, we're going to roll that out. So you no longer have to line up at the bank to deposit. You can deposit to these real-time deposit ATMs. It's the first large network in the country. Of course, let me close with what we're doing for COVID-19. And we're basically, I call them the IATF's 3 irrationals. Curfew, minors, and transport. I think many of you will agree it makes 0 sense. And I think they're starting to give in on bits of it. And our view is that when you're hungry, you become more rational. So it's trying to just quicken that pace and show them the math. Also, we're funding a contact tracing app. There's only one in our view that will work anywhere. It's the one based on the Google Apple exposure notification API, because that's the only Bluetooth that will work, and only Bluetooth will work. GPS doesn't work indoors. And then finally, we had at the end of the month, we'll be making active cases per barangay available at the front door of our stores. So the idea is kind of like, give people control again of what's going on. You can get this number down if you come together as a community. It's no longer this abstract thing that just, lightning from heaven, the lockdown comes, and you're powerless over it. You're not. You can do it in your community. And this is in support also of the IATF's Barangay Lockdown Directive. With that, I turn it over again to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vic. A virtual applause for you. Apologies. It was just my problem actually with my screen.
Okay.
Apparently, you are fine for everyone else. So I'm like the loser here. But anyway, Vic, thank you so much. I'm
you.
pretty much reflecting what Alice said there. Cash is king. Cash management is really, really critical at this point. And of course, it's great that you're supporting your franchisees with sourcing cash as well. And great that you're also supporting your communities, because at the end of the day, that's what these community stores are about. It's more than just about products. It's about making these connections with customers. So thank you so much once again to Vic Paterno for that. Now, before we go to our next expert, please prepare your questions for our business experts by typing them in the Q&A button, okay? It's the Q&A button that you see at the bottom of your screens, not the chat. If you want to talk to us personally, you go to the chat. If you want to ask questions to our guest speakers, you have to go to the Q&A button, go to the Q&A box, and type in your questions, type in as many as you want, and we'll go through those questions and I'll be asking those questions for you. Okay, once again, don't use the chat box, please. That's a private conversation with the panelists and with the secretariat. Okay, let's move on now to our final speaker. We have the CEO of Rox Foods Company, the master franchisee of Philippines Potato Corner in Thailand. He's just 27 years old. He's an entrepreneur who started with a Potato Corner project back in 2015 and then opened his first store in 2016. Now he has 50 branches across Bangkok alone, and is planning for an even more exponential expansion, exponential at this time, which is realizable. A realizable goal since Thailand has had one of the lowest cases of COVID in Asia. A virtual round of applause for Mr. CHAYAPATRA Pong THONGCHAROEN. Sawadee-ka.
Sawadee krab, sawadee krab. Hello guys. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay. Hi, could you see my screen?
Yes, it's we see it. I see it. I don't trust myself anymore, Paul.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. So I'm very honored to be here today among, very good panelists. And if my first advice is anything, is that don't listen to me, listen to them instead. I think that's much better. But anyway, so first of all, I'd like to share a little bit about who we are and how are things in Thailand, since most of our audience here are Filipinos. So let me just get started here. So we are Potato Corner Thailand. So we have 53 branches nationwide. Actually, it's just not in Bangkok. We have around 30-ish branches in Bangkok. We're the fastest growing snack brand in Thailand, and we're very proud of that. And as a matter of fact, right now, even this year, we still have our expansion plan. So we plan to open around 5 or 6 more stores towards the end of the year. So we want to end up with around nearly 60 stores, despite all the pandemic here. So, but more importantly, I also want to share with you about how Thailand is right now, and also how things are being done here. So Thailand is actually quite lucky in the sense that we have managed the COVID situation pretty well. We have had more than 100 days without any coronavirus cases, in terms of local transmissions. Of course, we've been having some foreign visitors who are diagnosed with coronavirus in quarantine, but locally we have had no cases. I think there were quite a few that were untraceable, but mostly life is quite normal here in Thailand right now. More importantly, also, we've only had around 1 month of lockdown in Thailand. And then around in May, we started to reopen our country, and then everything was back to normal, I guess. However, this comes at a cost of our economy also, because I'm not sure if you know, but Thailand is very dependent on tourism. So we have around 20% of our economy being reliant on tourism, and 12% of that comes from international arrivals. So meaning that we are pretty bad economically in this sense. Hold on.
Okay, Pong, before you move on, we'd like you to put your screen on, I think it's called full screen display. That's the command in the software. Because we're getting the other screens as well, like the next slide. We don't want to preempt your next slide.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure here. Hold on.
Right, this is the new normal, right, Pong? It's like we're all having to get used to this software, but If you can't figure it out, it's fine, Pong, as long as we can see at least one slide, and we'll pretend not to see the following slide, if that's okay. Put it into presentation mode if you can. There. That's a bit better. And full screen. Press F5 in the keyboard. That's actually not for me. That's just that's people telling me what to do. I don't know how to do it myself. But press F5. They're telling me. Nah. That's all right. Let's just go back to the previous one. Better to have a slide than no slide at all.
David, we have a slide backup. We'll use our own slides. We'll share. We'll do the share.
All right. Okay, Thong, you're in luck because we have a redundancy in place. The secretariat will do the slides for you. Just have to prompt them and say, move on to the next slide. Okay?
Yeah, sorry, but right now I can't see anyone. So hold on. Give me around 1 minute to fix this also. It's like my computer has gone dark. Sorry.
Okay.
Just give me 1 minute to try to fix this. Hold on.
Or maybe we can proceed with some questions first, David, and go back to Pong after. Can you escape this, Pong? Do escape? Yeah, all right. There, we can see you.
Okay, this is crowdsourcing, Pong. We're getting a lot of people on the chat room telling you what you can do, like stop share first, then share it again. This is interesting. This is like a presentation through crowdsourcing. But yeah, okay, Pong, while you're figuring that out, maybe we can just go to some of the first thing that goes into my mind is like, so what's the business atmosphere like there? I mean, we're looking forward to the time where we have a big drop in the cases. And I think the best way to visualize this is to look at Bangkok or look at Thailand. And what is the consumer confidence like? Because if you noticed during the survey, during the poll, Pong, the one thing that had the highest, the one opinion at least, that had the highest explanation for the drop in sales and drop in profitability has been the lack of consumer confidence. So what is the confidence like there in Bangkok? All right. I think we've also lost Pong. I think he's restarting his computer. So anyway, we have the backup slides. Pong, if you can hear us, it's okay. We have backup slides and we can do it for you.
David, we lost him. We can proceed with the other guests, the other speakers, please. Thank you.
Okay, we only have 3 speakers though. So we'll hope to get back Pong in a short while and we can proceed with a question and answer portion. So we have Alice and Vic in the room. And if it's okay with Alice and Vic, can we get them back on screen? Alice and Vic, is it okay? We can move on to the question and answer portion before we get Pong back in with his slide presentation. Okay, so if I could address the participants as well, this is your chance to ask questions to both Alice and Vic about profitability and other financial and operational issues with regard to their brands and companies. So let's start off with some questions. Vic, are you there? Can I hear you? Alice? Okay.
We're here.
All right. Okay. All right. That's a different background now for Alice. She's back in the mall with her shop behind her. Okay. I want to ask you this question. You sort of touched on it earlier, but is profitability even an immediate goal right now? I mean, it's a theme of our discussion, but is that the one priority we should be focused on right now? And if not, what is more important? And I'd also like to ask, how do we measure success then in 2020? if not through the traditional way of just looking at the bottom line, which is profitability, how should we measure success this year at least?
Vic, go ahead.
Okay, she's passing the buck to Vic
Yeah.
first, or she thinks of an answer.
I think we're lucky in that our business is pivotable. I think businesses like restaurants, I'm not from that industry, but I wouldn't know how you would actually pivot something like that. With us, I think, people are buying food to eat. They're just buying different foods. And so we can still play a role. Their needs around digital have changed. But if I were not pivotable, yeah, I would be looking at survival, basically, just surviving until the end of this, and that would mean cutting locations, certainly renegotiating rents before you do. Make sure you take full advantage of your closure plan by trying to reduce rents before that.
All right, we'll talk about closures in a while, Vic, but very clear there. Survival is your immediate goal for 2020. Profitability perhaps is a luxury at this point for those that have the ability to look at to get there. But loud and clear, Vic. Alice, this is
I
the same
agree with Vic.
for Golden ABC.
Yes, I agree with Vic that surviving this year is the most crucial for most businesses, especially for us who are considered non-essential because we're fashion. I used to argue that point that, hey, I thought the essentials were food, clothing, and shelter. Clothing's like, essential too, but since it's been labeled as fashion, it's kind of become non-essential already. But anyway, um, some of our stores, we are widely spread across the Philippines, and in that aspect, it is a blessing of sorts because some of our stores in the south are actually doing far better than the ones in the NCR area are doing, or provincial Luzon areas. So profitability is still possible with some of the stores. So that's why managing the cost is as important, so that you will be able to get that good balance and you don't really bleed out. So,
Hello?
hi.
Hi.
Pong is
You're
back.
back.
Pong,
Okay, I'm back.
Comes back.
we'll just finish Alice's answer to my question, and we'll get back to you just very quickly, okay?
I'm so sorry. All right, all right.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that profitability is still possible. You just have to manage costs, and to help you survive the entire year. But yes, it's still possible.
All right. We have a lot of questions for both you and Vic, but let's get back to Pong, who's back with us from Thailand. Pong, great to see you back. I thought we wouldn't see you again.
No, I thought so too. My computer went completely dead. Now I have to go on my iPad. Like it's literally dead. I can't even turn it on anymore. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Okay, I hope it wasn't
So
our
anyways,
fault.
you
Anyway,
guys
go
can hear me
ahead.
correctly, right? Could you go to my slides, please? Okay, so to the third slide, please.
All right, we're back in business, Pong. Go ahead. This looks
Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically, as I mentioned to you before, that our economy is suffering as a result of this. And of course, businesses are suffering, but as us at Potato Corner Thailand, we are actually quite okay because we've been focusing mostly on domestic consumers and local customers, but not necessarily the international arrival. So we're quite safe in this regards. Could you go to next slide, please? Okay, so the topic here today is maximizing store performance, right? I just want to share first and foremost that in my opinion, I want to bring optimism into this conversation also, and to share with you like how things can be better post-lockdown, because in Thailand, actually the past July and August, we've seen actually our strongest sales that we've had since actually ever. We actually hit our all-time high. And I do believe that this is also because of pent-up demand, but it's also to do a lot with a lot of the measures that we've undertaken, especially in the COVID times, that have resulted in us
David, must be the Thailand connection. or his location connection. We're having problem with him. Can we just proceed? Thank you.
Okay, please go to next slide. Sorry.
All right, you're still
Hello?
on. Yeah, we're having
Yes,
some
I'm still on.
problems with your broadband
Connectivity.
connection, maybe. But
Yes,
go ahead.
yes.
Right now, you're
Yes.
back.
For next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So I think the first thing I want to mention is that we have to measure sales performance per square meter, not per store. And I think this is very important for us because it is a principle that I've always upheld for our stores in Thailand. And I think, I'm not sure if this can apply to other retailers, but at least for F&B, I believe it can apply. So usually when people, when they open a restaurant, let's say a coffee shop, right? You usually have a standard. Let's say if they sell above 10,000 US dollars a month, they would usually say, oh, my store is doing well. But what our principles here at Potato Corner is, we don't want to be the stores or the French fry store that sells the most in Thailand. We want to be the store that sells the most per square meter, because basically, you're a store, you pay rent per square meter. You pay your people, you have more people, you have more square meters. So we have to measure our performance by square meter, not per store. So that's the guiding principle that we have here at Potato Corner Thailand. And we really try to maximize that with everything we do. So during the COVID times, and actually since we opened our stores, there are three main strategies that we've always adhered to that I would like to share with you. So next slide, please. Okay, so there are three strategies here, right, that we found very useful. So first of all is core products. So core products meaning we have to expand our core products offerings for our customers. I'll explain this later. Second of all, channels. This is extremely important, and this is literally what saved us during the COVID pandemic, having more delivery channels, etc. And third of all, company operating hours. So how to maximize our operating hours and how to maximize our sales based on this. So next slide, please. So expanding core products. So I think this is generally what I try to tell all F&B entrepreneurs all the time is that, as owners, we tend to like our products more than our customers like it, right? So let's say that when I brought Potato Corner to Thailand, I like French fries, of course, but I have to always think outside in the sense that I have to believe that, maybe not a lot of people like French fries as much as I do. As a matter of fact, in Thailand, our potato consumption is nowhere near that of the Philippines. I think it's only around like 20 or 30% consumption compared to the Philippines. So in Thailand, let's say out of 10 people, only around 3 or 4 or at the maximum 5 people would eat French fries. So you see, the slice of our pie is actually very small initially. So what we did further on a year onwards was that, okay, we need to increase the size of this pie. So basically, okay, so we introduced chicken pop. We started introducing more products like popcorn. And this year, we're going to have a lot of more exciting products towards the end of this year. Now, this is very important because it allows you to acquire more customers while using the same amount of square meters, right? So at Potato Corner Thailand, we have a lot of constraints because we have very small frying capacity. Let's say compared to bigger brands like McDonald's, KFC, or Jollibee. These guys have, massive frying capacity, but compared to them, like our store is very small compared to them, right? So, but despite that, we're still trying to be very creative. So we try to find products that allow us to be, that can be cooked in the same amount of time that we cook our fries. So by doing this, it allows us to acquire more or bigger slices of pie that allows us to have bigger sales space. So this is very important. So if your store sells coffee or whatever, try to add more products. That's a wider customer base that you need. Next slide, please. Second of all, and very, very importantly, you need to maximize your delivery channels, your sales channels, right? Like for us, I always tell my team that, if COVID pandemic happened a year or two earlier, like before the rise of Grab, Food Panda, we are going to be in a very bad position, But thanks to the invention and also the rise of Grab, we're in a very good position prior to the pandemic already because we've established a good relationship with these guys and they've been very helpful. And when the pandemic hits, we have more sales channel than just selling at the storefront. But what I'm trying to tell everyone here is that it's not just Grab or Food Panda or any of these particular channels, but I want everyone to think of their channel, of their store, not as a physical store, but more of a production hub. So don't think that you have to have customers to go to your stores to buy them. No, your store is more of a production hub. So I've seen really great places like some coffee shops that do deliveries. Let's say if you're in a position in an office building, you would offer like free delivery to offices within that, to companies within that building. That's also possible. So you need to be creative with regards to your sales channel. I mean, right now, Potato Corner Thailand, and we even sell through Lazada and Shopee, right? So we sell our vouchers, etc. So think of your stores as a production hub. Don't think of this as a physical store, and there's so many channels you could sell it on, and you can maximize revenue by a lot. That is what I want to share first of all. Next slide, please. Third of all, we extend our operating hours in key locations. So what's really important that I want to share with everyone is, a lot of times customers have even more different behavior than you think they might do, right? So for example, initially we were always thinking, okay, who would want to eat French fries at 2 a.m., 1 a.m., right? But then later on, we were finding out that, we had a lot of orders towards the end of our closing hours. So we were like, okay, so why don't we extend our closing hours to 3 a.m., just to see how it goes. And the result was amazing. In stores that allow us to do that, we literally increased our sales by 30%. And I'm not saying that this is possible in all places. Like stores in malls, you cannot do that. Obviously, you have to close at 10 p.m. with the mall hours. But I'm telling you that if your stores are outside, do not underestimate the power of demands that that you can't see yet. So, and there's no harms in trying. You can open your stores to 3 a.m. for around a month. If it doesn't work, you can shut it down later on. You can close at 10 p.m. later on. But in my opinion, it's always better to try for these demands rather than just give it away. And I also want to add more on the production hub that I just mentioned in the previous slide. Actually, like right now for Potato Corner Thailand, we're even doing more production hubs that don't even have a storefront sales in many locations across Bangkok, right? So right now we have in an office building that is an office building parking lot that is doing crazy well. We're opening one in Khao San Road, which is really empty right now because it's a nightlife district. But we opened this as a Grab location just to sell on Grab. And we're opening a lot more in Bangkok because we see our stores now as more production hub. And these stores allow us to sell later on. So I would encourage people to explore this opportunity because, there's really a lot of potential here also. Next slide, please. So our strategy here right now is all towards one pillar. This is basically that we want to measure our sales by our store performance by the sales per square meter, but not how much a store is doing, right? So basically what we think is, at the end of the day, these three strategies is revolving around this pillar. And we're gonna have a lot more strategies that revolve around this pillar eventually one day. But what I want, if there's anything I want people to take away from me is that I hope that everyone would always measure their performance based on the amount of space that they have, based on the sales per square meter, not because if they have a big store and they sell well. And then I think by being creative, everyone can get out of this crisis easily. And I'm sure everyone can. Thank you very much. And so sorry for all the technical hiccups.
No problem, Pong. It happens to all of us. It could happen again, but that's why we call it the new normal, right? And we're so much more forgiving these days about these technical problems than we ever were in our lives. And hopefully,
Yes.
so our customers also more forgiving about the changes that are happening in stores
Yes.
all over the world. Pong, fantastic presentation. We here in the Philippines are looking at the Thailand as some kind of template for when we start to loosen some of our quarantine restrictions a bit more. And I think we'll start to agree with the things you said, like how extended hours actually help increase sales and so on and so forth. Pong, stay where you are. Let's continue with Vic and Alice. And let's continue where we left off with our question and answer portion. Again, a reminder to our participants, you can join in this conversation, ask questions, just write those questions, type it in the Q&A box. Okay, Vic, let me go back to you, Vic, if you're still there.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, you touched on this. You touched on this earlier. But I wanna go deeper into this. How do you manage cash flow and plug revenue loss without resorting first to layoffs and branch closures? I know sometimes in extreme cases it goes there, but how do you make sure that you've done everything first before going to those extreme measures?
Well, we've reduced labor hours, so we kind of spread the kind of spread the pain. So we've minimized layoffs by reducing labor hours. I mean, for one thing, we're not operating 24 hours in most stores, so people get a few more days off a week, to the extent we can. I think the most important thing is your projection of what will happen in the future. If it's going to last 6 months, for example, you wouldn't be closing any branches, because when you close a branch, you write off your investment. But if it's going to drag on 3 years, then you probably want to close branches. In the midterm, it's what will you be able to do to avoid, to inch you towards profitability. Basically, simply put, if we don't pull off this pivot as hoped, then we will be laying off more people and closing a lot more branches, because our view is it's going to be 3 years.
And what is the basis of that 3-year scenario? I think
There's the
I've
vaccine.
seen worst case scenarios going at maybe 1.5 to 2 years, but I haven't quite come across the 3-year scenario.
Yeah, so I have a friend in pharma who's actually looking at vaccines. Another friend in the development bank who is actually buying vaccines, forward contracts, and that's where the 3 years comes from. 3 to 5 years. There's a time when the vaccine is available in the US, and there's a time when the vaccine is available in the Philippines.
I guess you're really planning on the more conservative side because of the size of your company, and obviously smaller brands have a bit more flexibility than you have. All right, thank you so much. I mean, I was curious about that scenario, but I want to ask Alice as well, because you're also hurting. The apparel business is really hurting, not just of course Golden ABC, but the apparel business in general, whether it's luxury apparel or even like medium level apparel. So how do you manage cash flow and plug those losses before resorting to closing stores altogether?
Well, closing stores for us, David, is really the last option. Um, the uh, the first thing we did was basically to review headcount, the sales volume that we had per store, and then tried to right size the sales team that could serve that particular store's needs. So one of the things that we also did was that since we saw that our e-com sites, I mean, our e-com channel also grew significantly. And that time when transportation was also very limited, we also asked some of our sales staff to possibly move into the distribution center area to help with the full order fulfillment. So we cross posted. That's one of the other things that we did. Um, and basically, we did shortened work hours. So we did all sorts of creative things just to keep the stores open as long as we could. It also helped that the malls were very cooperative and very supportive with dialoguing as to what the major bleeders were for retailers like us, and they were very supportive in really giving all those rental concessions. So that helped. So every little thing that you can save on, those are things we pursued. We were meeting and revising our budgets weekly, believe it or not. So sales forecasts, we were doing that on a weekly basis. The first few months were really very stressful, but then I think we've kind of like gotten a hang of it, and people are more or less used to already. You've templated basically a crisis management of sorts, so it's easier now, and people it becomes more natural in
Okay.
terms of decision making and all that.
Let's go to the core. One of the core issues, really, of what's hurting Golden ABC is the perception of value attached to apparel at this time, where it's not seen as an essential. Are you looking at that as a challenge to maybe tweak your product offering, maybe pivot to other products entirely, still related, of course, to something that your manufacturing and supply chain can provide?
The teams were actually able to pivot very fast. As early as early May, we were able to launch a lot of essential healthcare. I mean, like sanitation products that we were able to put out and bring to our stores. So that's one of the first pivot. The second pivot that we had was to really ensure that we have the right price points, because even if fashion is considered non-essential with all the Zoom meetings, people still want to look good, right?
People still
So
sleep and
what we were concentrating
people
on,
need their pambahay, right?
yes, you can be in shorts right now, but like you have to have a nice top and a blazer, so you still need to look good. So we were saying anything that is within Zoom distance or a Zoom view has to look good. So we configured our merchandising assortment to really be more tops, more sanitation products, so health and beauty. So those are things that we really shifted to, and besides e-com, of course.
I thought you were describing me, shorts and a blazer. Okay, because that's exactly what I'm wearing right now. Oh, that's a secret. Okay. No,
You can
but
actually see
seriously, seriously, let's talk about location now. And Pong, if I can ask you, location. You did say that these pop-up stores that you've put up around Bangkok, it has been helping. In a time of quarantine, sooner or later, Manila will start to loosen its quarantine measures. We hope sooner than later. And we want to get an idea of what works based on what is working already in Bangkok in terms of where to put up these satellite stores, if you can call it that.
Okay, so this is more like a word of advice for more F&B people. So if you have a store in Grab, usually what you can request is that you can request for like a heat map. So Grab would provide you with a heat map of like where your demands are, etc. And we found that actually the best place to put the stores are the places that have high demands, but you don't have a lot of stores there yet, right? So actually, we just put a store actually just right below me because it is our office, right? So we put one store right in literally the parking lot of our office. And it's actually just around 3 kilometers for our another store, but we found that there's a huge demand around this area. So we opened one here and it was basically really great, right? So we found that we tend to stick with the places that we already know have a lot of demands here already, not necessarily a further away location. Because at the end of the day, if your brand is a great brand, like in my opinion, Potato Corner is a great brand, then there's always going to be exceeding demand, like excessive demand that you need to be able to serve, right? So that's going to be my word of advice. If you do not yet if you're not on Grab, my advice is to partner with all the delivery partners as soon as possible. I understand that there are of course also commissions that you need to pay, but in terms of, let's say, the access to market, the information and the data that they provide you, it's really invaluable, especially during these times.
All right. So basically, go where the people are, go where the potential customers are, and if they're working from home,
go where the people are.
If they're not in the malls right now, if they're not in the central business districts, then go to where they live. So I want to ask Vic, because the whole idea of a community store is to be close to where people live. Are you reconsidering in the future your strategy for locations, like maybe closer to where people live, and slowly away from the high concentration of people, which would be the shopping areas and the central business districts? Hyper locality may not just be temporary. It could be a permanent thing. Vic.
Yes, we believe that we now have way too many stores in the CBD than we need, and because there are very few people going to office. So the residential stores have well outperformed. In fact, we told all our franchisees or the ones who had applied that, look, you may really want to reconsider your locations. In fact, we will ask you to make the case again for them before we approve it. So there's a new wave of reapprovals. And residential areas are, we're much more bullish on that. The CBD, it's a question of if and when. Right? You can't. How much can you sell when less than half people are in the office?
All right, but clearly it's an opportunity now to look at communities like the sari stores, right? I mean, it's like getting closer to where people live, and people don't have to take public transport. They can bike to these places, get their groceries, get their snacks. So yeah, that's an insight I think that a lot of these retailers have seen. And Alice, apart from going to where the people are, literally to communities, which may not work exactly for apparel brands, of course, it's e-commerce, and that's where people are right now. They're on the internet, and that's where they're shopping. Tell us more about your strategy there and how this will complement in the future or currently your brick and mortar stores.
Well, the growth of e-com is really, it's been accelerated even more with this pandemic, no? Because a lot of our stores were closed for a considerable amount of time. People wanted to buy the product, so they went online and they actually paid for freight, because they wanted the products with them, as soon as possible. So that's one of the discoveries that we had during this pandemic, that people were actually willing to pay for freight or for delivery to their houses. um, that's something that for e-commerce is something that you look out for, because last mile delivery could be the most expensive ones. It's expensive to do it in the Philippines, at least. So that was one big factor that we tried to solve. We are encouraging and challenging our stores to really, like as I said, like how can you go beyond the four walls of your stores to really expand your service to your customers nearby. And some of the stores have started putting up, ideas of creating Viber groups, and seeing how they can touch base with the customers directly. So we are asking them to be more creative with their solutions, because in the end it's all about a shared purpose, which is really to make sure that the brands continue to be relevant to the market. And so people are doing creative things just to get the
For those who
product out
haven't
there.
set up the infrastructure, because it takes time to create that infrastructure for e-commerce, right? And if you haven't done it now, what's your advice?
There are It's very crude, but I don't know with you guys, but I've bought a lot of things on Viber communities, and these are mom and pop that's selling from their kitchens, from their houses. And it's very personal. It's C to C, but it actually works. So you for the small businesses that don't have that kind of capital to put up that infrastructure, you can actually just be creative with your solutions. There's so many out there with tech, with Facebook, with Instagram. You can get your products out there to so many more people.
And that includes your brands on
Yes,
these like
yes,
micro stores that,
yes.
that we're seeing popping up all over the place. Vic, how do franchisees or your partners fit into this e-commerce future? I mean, is there a business model for it? Because, talking
Yeah.
about the franchisees, how they can profit from e-commerce.
Yes. So there are two revenue streams. One is the logistics. So the store gets a fee for handling the package. And the other is something we're looking at. In digital, you have something called acquisition cost, which tends to be very expensive. Digital models are inherently efficient. It's just that they're new, so you have to get people used to them. And that's the spending to get people used to them is called acquisition cost, anywhere from 500 to 2,000 pesos, depending on the product. So one of the ways we're looking at is for stores that onboard customers, that get customers to use the online grocery channel, for example. So we would pay them commissions going forward on the order and going forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Vic. Let me go to the questions now. There are quite a lot that have come in, and some of them are long, so please bear with me as I go through some of these. Okay, from Manuel Cardo, he was the first actually, so I'm going to give him priority. This is to everyone, but maybe I'll pick a few of you. How do you make a profit given that our margins are compromised with delivery service, third-party service? That's a big issue, and I hear it all the time. It's like, it might look like there's a lot of sales, but when you factor in either it's commissions or delivery service fees that you have to deal with, it's something like a mirage. Alice? All right, I think,
Um,
okay,
I
there.
actually answered that question for him, no, and I just said you need to be able to see if you can actually push that last mile cost to your consumer, because that's a big cost. especially if your margins are already very limited. If you can pass on that cost to the consumer, then that gives you a little bit more wiggle room as far as profit is concerned.
Pong, you're doing brisk business with delivery. I wonder if how do you manage the cost and still come out profitable?
So I get these questions a lot. Like, I mean, people ask me this all the time. So I think the way to do this is, first of all, to negotiate. I mean, that's the first step to everyone. And the more stores you have, naturally, the more bargaining power and the more negotiation power you have with them. But also at the same time, what happens is if you're a smaller store, if you're an independent, let's say coffee shop or a restaurant, uh, you don't necessarily have to charge the same price on the delivery platform. So you're a storefront, right? So let's say if you're a bigger brand, right? Maybe you can negotiate for lower commissions, but you're kind of forced to be the same price everywhere, right? But at the same time, you get lower commissions. So I would suggest you negotiate a lot. But if you're a smaller independent restaurant, then I suggest that you can do maybe different tiering of pricing. And I'm sure that people will understand because, it's a convenience also. And the delivery fees are so low with these platforms. At least in Thailand, it's very low. It's like 10 baht, right? So I think if you're a small independent restaurants, I think you're allowed to charge different prices for delivery platforms.
All right, thanks. Alice, question here for you. Because we were talking about Viber and how Viber groups are like the new marketplace for certain product lines at least. And the question is, how do you monetize Viber marketplaces as the Viber admins? And how do you stop the spam from, I guess, scammers and all sorts of hackers, security issues, which could be a problem once these Viber groups become extremely profitable and active. Alice, maybe you'd like to answer that.
Well, to me, if Regatta, one of our brands, Regatta, is already managing its own Viber community, and there are actually a lot of control levers that you can install on that particular group, like not allowing anybody else to just post that it's just like a one-way thing, and then they can message you directly. So there are a lot of things that you can do with Viber, and a lot of social media, also for that matter. So it's really just being able to, I don't know about monetizing it, whether it's really something that, because we didn't go into it with the thought of monetizing it. Monetizing probably as far as being able to convert it to sales, yes. But taking in ads and all that, it's not our direction. So I can't really give much advice on that. But there are a lot of levers of control that you can already activate on Viber and all the other platforms alone.
Right, very quickly, Alice, a follow-up question. It's about whether your opinion, whether current e-commerce trends will persist and this omni-channel shopping behavior will outlast the pandemic. Of course it will, but I think the question is also how much of your business post-pandemic will shift online?
I think we are very hopeful that whatever business growth that we have achieved during this pandemic we will be able to sustain in terms of online business. More than just online, we're also looking at being able to crack the code for the last mile cost. A lot of our businesses, a lot of our online sales are strong in the NCR and Provincial Luzon areas where freight cost is more manageable, but it's more challenging for the southern parts of the country. So we are looking for ways to really be able to serve within the localities that those customers are in. So being able to move to Omni is really the final objective of really being able to maximize your brick and mortar as kind of like your warehouses too in the locality. So those are things that we're all, I mean, it's a lot of moving pieces, but everything's just been accelerated with this pandemic because you can't afford to say, oh, we'll do this first, then this, because everything has to be now, so everything's just been accelerated. And, I know we have a great team that's been working really hard to really just deliver on the growth it's kind of like heroic in that way.
Right. And focus on the now, I think, is a key phrase there, because there's a lot of things we want to do, but right now we're just trying to survive and try to get through the next day. You talked about managing the last mile costs. That's key. I think that you've said it many times throughout this afternoon. I think that's a great takeaway. Manage your last mile costs, because on the surface it may look like a fantastic business model, but if you can't control that last mile, you're in trouble. Quickly, Pong, question about what you brought up earlier about how do you benchmark the revenue per square meter? What's a good standard for F&B at least, which is Potato Corner? Is it compared against your top stores or your competitors in the area where your store is? I mean, you touched on this earlier, but can you go deeper with that? I hope we still have Pong in the room. Maybe we can Vic, can you answer that?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, there, Pong, go ahead. Yeah. Did you hear the
I'm here.
question?
Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah. We hear you,
Yes,
Pong.
yes, I heard the question. Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, so basically, I think that the average store sales per store, you really need to find what your competitors are, right? First of all, you need to define who your competitors are. Like, I'm not sure if I can name names here. Like, let's say, for example, in Thailand, right? We benchmark ourselves actually with the milk tea brands, not actually with like McDonald's or anyone, because we actually did like a focus group discussion before, and then like we asked them to identify our competitors, and they identified us that we're like, competing with milk tea. So we went out to try to find what each of the milk tea brands were selling, right? And it's not an easy thing to do, honestly. But I mean, where there's a will, there's a way, of course. Even if you have to go there, spend time at their store and count people one by one of how many people they have coming to their store per day. But you have to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're able to do that, then you just need to beat that target, basically. And you have to give yourself no excuses whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, even if you're growing, but you're growing slower than your competitor, or in this case, in this case of COVID, that you're losing sales, but you're losing more than your competitor, it means that you're losing in general. Mm-hmm. So the first advice I would give to anyone right now is that go find who your competitors are and go find out exactly how much you're selling per store, what's your average sales, and use that to be your motivation, to be your benchmark to beat. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Pong. I mean, there's fantastic questions. I wish we had the time to ask all the questions. I even had my own questions to ask, but perhaps if we could request our speakers, these questions are on the Q&A tab. Maybe you can answer them personally. And I think our participants would appreciate it very, very much. That's all the time we have. And I don't even have enough time to recap these things. So I'll just say that thanks so much for sharing your insights and strategies. We're hoping, of course, that these strategies that you mentioned can be applied to other franchise businesses that want to maximize their store performance, especially during these very difficult times.